And now for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to This Old Marketing, proudly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for you-know-who business professionals. I'm Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 411 of our wonderful little show here for Friday, September, what the hell am I doing? January 19th, 2024, and with me, as always, as he always is, my colleague, my friend, and a guy, well, who is only slightly less depressed than I am about the football season ending the way it did, Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
I don't really know what to say about that.
That's all I have to say about
that. There's a good portion of our listenership that is thrilled.
I'm sure.
Both the Browns and the Cowboys are done in dramatic fashion.
In spectacular fashion, yes, indeed.
Spectacular losses. I believe, 20 plus 30 point, whatever. I don't know how much you guys lost by. We lost by 31.
Well, we didn't lose by that many, but it was not as close as the score would appear. Yeah. I mean, it was 30 something to 60 or 42 to 16 or something at one point in the game. It was like, this is just
I did feel really bad about it because we were at our friend's volleyball tournament and I wasn't watching the Cowboys game. And I'm like, oh, let me see. I've got sending good vibes for you, Robert, because the day before I just saw our Browns get destroyed by the Houston Texans. And I look at it and it said something like 27-0. And I said, this is not going to be a good This Old Marketing episode. But on to baseball season.
Here we go. There we go.
Do you have, now that our teams are out, quick, who do you think is going to win the whole thing?
I think the 49ers are the team to beat. I think that's but here, I'll tell you this. I think I think the Ravens are probably going to take it all. And I would be glad actually if the Ravens took it all. Mostly because I hate the 49ers so much. But it's not going to be the Chiefs. It's not going to be the Bills. Those are both teams that are ready to get eliminated. The Ravens just look so strong, and they whipped San Francisco the last time. So
I know they did, but I honestly don't think the Ravens are that good. I just don't. I don't. I think I think they're going to get knocked off either by the Bills or by the Texans. I really do.
It depends. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If the Ravens had to go play in Buffalo, I would agree with you. And I think the Chiefs get knocked off just because they got to go play in the snow and the cold. And I just don't think they'll play that well. And Buffalo will play well enough to win. But I think going to Baltimore and having to play the Ravens there, I think Lamar is just playing lights out football right now. So yeah.
We will see. I'm not a Ravens fan.
No, I know you're not.
For those people that don't know the history, the Ravens are formerly the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
So try to put that together when they moved.
Yeah, just Google it. It's a whole story. It's a story.
A whole story. So they don't get our history, but that was our team.
Yep. That is
so. Exactly I'm not in a good mood, Robert. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm gonna apologize to everyone. It's been a rough week. Plus the fact that yesterday was like -3 degrees here in Cleveland, and I hate cold weather.
It is.
Why I live in Cleveland, I don't know. I love Cleveland, but this January, February, tough times for me.
I'm telling you should live in Los Angeles. You should come out here. This is where you should live. This is where you should live in Southern California. This is the weather that you love is Southern California weather. I mean,
yes, you are right. I like when I go out.
I mean, you have some ridiculous fascination with Florida, so I'm just gonna.
Florida's just you know what? No, honestly, it's just an easier flight. I can take.
Fair enough.
2 hours.
Yeah, that's fair.
2 hours to basically anywhere in Florida, or I'm going 5 hours. to Los Angeles and I get to deal with the lovely LAX airport. I mean, there's nothing.
Yeah, well, let's just
finer than
so
that.
because Orlando's airport is so much better. I mean,
No, I'm talking. No. I'm not talking Orlando. See, you always say like everything. Florida is not Orlando.
Miami's worse. Miami's
We've got
airport is
wonderful
worse.
pictures in the Tampa Bay area, Fort Myers areas.
Okay. Yeah. So if there are any
wonderful place to be.
If there are any redeeming attributes of Florida, and there are a few, I will tell you, there are a few. It is the Gulf side. Yes, it is the Tampa and south of Tampa. It's beautiful there. And of course the Keys. The Keys are lovely.
You know, I've never been to the Keys, but I'll be there in April. So I'm going to the Keys the first time in April.
Keys are absolutely spectacular. I mean, there's nothing to do there, but eat and drink. But the Keys are amazing.
I think if it's warm and I could eat and drink,
it'll be warm. It'll be warm. Yeah.
But this is and those who are regular listeners of this program, thank you very much. You always know that in January, February, I get in a funk.
That's right.
It's a thing. We deal with it by going to warm places, and it's just this week I'm not in a warm place.
No,
next week I will be.
Your heart and head and body are not in a warm place.
Well, and okay. Have you seen the commercial with Mike Greenberg standing in front of the grill trying to get warm, and it's 48 degrees outside, and he's got his big parka on? This is an ESPN commercial.
No,
he's got his parka on, and everybody saw the other two guys are dressed normally, and he's like really cold, and he's trying to warm up over the grill, and they're like, Mike, it's 48 degrees. It's like whatever. He's like, but the wind is whipping off the lake or off the water. He's like, we're 30 miles from the water.
Yeah,
that's me. Like mid 40s, whatever. I'm freezing. My hands have already turned white super white because I'm cold, and yeah. Anyways, it's a thing. I'm a little dramatic about it, but
I know. Yeah, this I know that your drama about the cold temperatures. Yes.
Anyways, what else is going on?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on, and we do have an interesting show for sure. But one other thing I wanted to get your take on is if you've seen this this thing that's going viral right now, this news piece that's going. Well, it's not really a news piece as much as it is sort of just a viral video of the woman who was fired from Cloudflare.
I did. I've been seeing the.
She recorded it. Basically, she recorded herself getting laid off, and the video has now gone viral with everybody sort of coming into Monday Morning Quarterback, as it were. Her, what she did, was it right?
So I only saw the headlines. I only sort of know what happens.
So basically, what happened was.
The lowdown.
I'll give you the lowdown, right? So the lowdown is that that you can Google this. There's plenty of the mainstream news outlets covering this, but a woman by the name of Brittany Petch, I'm guessing, or Pietch, former employee of Cloudflare, and our B2B marketers out there will know and appreciate Cloudflare, where most people don't. Like my wife would have no idea what Cloudflare is, but a lot of us in the marketing technology space know Cloudflare, of course, because it's a big sort of web services sort of provider. Anyway, she was an employee seemingly in the account services group. So call that sales, call that account management, whatever. And then she's getting fired. And she basically says, look, she got a heads up that a lot of her colleagues were getting 15-minute appointments on their calendar. She gets a 15-minute appointment on her calendar over on Zoom and realizes that basically there's a wave of layoffs happening. And so she prepares for it by getting her camera set up so that she can record the actual interaction. And she's never met these people before. They're from HR. And of course they do the usual, we're sorry, we have bad news to deliver. And she says, I'm going to stop you right there. And she basically says, look, she starts to justify what she did and how she did it. And, basically, she's just saying that you can't make up that I'm not doing my job, or you can't say I'm not doing my job when I am doing my job and my reviews have been good and everything my boss says I've been good. And she records the whole thing and basically still gets fired. Right. And
of course, because at that point you're getting fired. Like
Yeah,
if HR is
right.
involved, they're not gonna say, "Oh, we'll have a meeting and talk about
this
it."
is not right.
And
It's
see.
not a negotiation, right?
Yeah,
It's not a
you're done.
negotiation.
You're already done.
And basically the world goes crazy, right? Her video goes completely viral, and sort of dividing down as we do on social media these days, as we do, it divides right down the middle of people saying, good for you standing up. This is awful. It's basically not a good look for Cloudflare, or honestly, because the other side also chimes in for her, honestly, because it's like, really, you're going to record that, and that's, what are you doing, and all those sort of, it gets to the point where the CEO actually has to tweet out, or X out, I don't know what the word is these days, and basically says, look, we fired approximately 40 salespeople over our 1,500 salespeople that we have. That's a normal quarter, they say, basically, and they're sort of doing it. It seems like they're sort of doing the GE thing, where they sort of take the lower performing layer of employees and basically let it go, and basically making room for more higher performing employees. So it's a normal course of business for many companies, by the way. So, it's an interesting thing because, and the reason I wanted to talk about it maybe on the show is because it brings up a lot of things about, as we create a lot of content as employees, as creators, as marketers, as influencers, as, just in our normal daily lives on social media. And I don't know if this was right or wrong, right? I don't, there is a certain aspect of this to say this is not going to be good for her ultimately in the long term. In the short term, it's interesting because she gets a lot of attention. I suspect she'll probably get a job interview out of this. But in the long term, is this good for her? I don't know, because I'm conflicted on it. So I wanted to get your take on it, I guess.
It's interesting in today's day and age when a lot of people, I don't know how old Brittany is, but she looked like she was Gen Z or close to millennial, young millennial.
Yeah.
Your entire lives are online. So what's it? I wonder if Brittany even thought about whether this was a good or a bad idea. Now, if Brittany's going to go on and be her own content entrepreneur, content creator, doesn't matter. It
Right.
might actually help from that standpoint. But if she wants to get another corporate job, yeah, it's a tough position to put an employer in. But again, if you are an employer today, I think you have to start expecting this to happen on a regular basis, because you've got people that have their always on lives. I mean, you and I were talking before about the Meta Ray-Ban glasses that finally seem to be cool enough for people to wear. And I've talked to a number of people that got them and love them. Absolutely love it. So I'm like, okay, well, there's something that Meta actually has done that's working. You're gonna have more and more of that happen where they're recording their entire lives.
Yeah.
Right now we do it in bits and pieces on different social media networks. But pretty soon in the future, some people will just turn it on. I was like, I'm on today.
Yeah.
You can get my live stream,
right.
seeing the movies.
That's right. Yeah.
I think you need to expect that.
Yeah. And then from the corporation standpoint, it's going to change the nature, or has the potential to change the nature of how layoffs are done, right? Because if I'm in HR, if I'm a leader in comms, for example, the communications group of a larger company, I'm going to take a good, long, hard look at how we're doing those exit, sort of, I guess, informative sort of interviews. I'm not sure, the right word for it, but basically it just may not make sense to do them via Zoom anymore. Right. They're just, with the risk, being that somebody's going to record it and post it to social media and make a thing out of it. It's like, it may not, it's just not worth it.
Playing devil's advocate, I would say, so I was I was involved in one of these 20 plus years ago when there wasn't technology, available like this.
Sure. I've been involved in multiples of these. Yeah.
And it was all, there was a meeting that happened. Somebody said this and somebody else said this, and it was one word against another person's word. And there was a lawsuit and a big trial, whatever. If we had a recording of it, none of that would have happened. Either was this person is right, this person is wrong, done. So
well, that's why they always have two people, right? They always
have two people.
Or at least two, right?
At least two. But I think if you just said we're going to record this, and both sides are aware, it's like, oh, we're going.
Well, that's a good point.
Recorded.
That's a good point.
And then I think that honestly, from this, maybe you'll see that just everything's recorded, and I think it's more to help the corporation and protect their butts. Well,
that's a great point, because
comes back and says, you said this, or you said I'm too old, or you said I'm too young, or you said I'm not doing this. It's like, no, we didn't. We got the recording right here. So I think that should be standard practice, even in an in-person environment.
It is. I believe for most companies, recording it is a standard practice, because for exactly the reason you just said. But I think the wrinkle that you're adding, which is, if it's recorded, then the company can, if it's tit for tat, right? In other words, if they release it, well, they can release it, right? And so,
I think they needed this added protection, so both sides can. I think, I don't know. I mean, did Brittany didn't say that she was recording on her side, did she?
She did not.
Yeah.
No.
See, I mean, that would have been. I wish that would have happened. It's like, hey, just so you know,
I believe that's true. Let me not. I recall that, but I want to make sure I'm correct on that. I don't believe she did. I don't believe she announced to the people on the call that she was recording.
And I guess the point is that we need to be expecting this in a corporate environment.
Yeah,
that it's being recorded by somebody somewhere, and if it's not today, it will be tomorrow.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what the audience thinks. I would love to hear what the audience thinks. When this, obviously comment on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you listen or watch the show. I'd love to hear your take on this, because I'm truly conflicted on it. I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's wrong. Or maybe it's neither. Maybe both can be true, right? It's both right and wrong. Maybe it's just a personal choice in what is, right?
All right. Do we have marketing stuff to talk about?
We do. Yes, we do. We have a good show. We have a wonderful show. We're going to talk about some big breaking-ish news, which happened this week and is a little close to home for me, which is, of course, the fact that TechTarget, the big B2B media company, has now been acquired by Informa. And of course, Informa being the owner and operator of the Content Marketing Institute. And then we will talk about the incredible shrinking podcast industry. We've got some really interesting discussion there to talk about where podcasting is in an industry, and interestingly enough, some things that are happening that even we are noticing across the industry.
We'll have quite a bit to talk about with this one.
Yeah, so we'll share there. If we have time, then we'll talk a little bit about OpenAI, and they've launched Chat GPT Teams. That's an interesting development that we can chat about, and then we'll rant and rave.
Chat GPT Teams.
No,
is it Chat GPTeams? Because it should be.
It should be.
It should be, right? I just came up with that.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I chalk it up to the cold is what I'm chalking it up to.
Oh yeah, my hands are freezing right now.
Frigid temperatures. We'll get to our rants and raves section, where I'm going to rant or rave. I guess it's more commentary, but it's a pretty strong commentary over what happened with Solo Brands and their Solo stoves and the Snoop Dogg thing. They have just replaced their CEO, and I'll talk about what I think about that. Yeah,
I didn't know any about it. I'm very interested in hearing.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And then you are going to talk about the fact that Reddit has now won a lawsuit against WallStreetBets.
Yes.
And that's fascinating to me, actually. So yeah, so good show leading up to the pinnacle, the penultimate, the zeitgeist, the wonderfulness of our Rants and Raves section.
Oh
So
my
stay
God.
tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
So basically,
for all of that.
but what you're saying is we've got a lot of filler, and then we have a really good Rants and
Well,
Raves
we could
portion
talk
at
about
the
football, I
end,
guess.
the end of
we,
this.
we could talk
Maybe
more
we
about
should
football.
mix it. We should mix it up. You know what I was thinking? Because we had a lot of we've had a lot of our listeners, wonderful listeners. What about we should maybe bring back this old marketing example at some point? Or remember how we used to have it at the end?
Yeah.
We said, "What's our example?"
Well, you know what we could do? We could sort of steal something. I think that's an excellent idea, by the way. But I also think we could probably steal from a winners and losers kind of thing. Steal from Galloway and do a winners and losers thing, where winners in content marketing, losers in content marketing. Because wait, when you hear my rant, it's this week would definitely be a great example of a loser in content and marketing. Yeah,
I like the idea. I don't want to steal from Galloway. But,
okay. All right. Well, you think about it.
But there's
you
something
put your hands in your
there
pockets.
might be and yeah, write into us. Let us know. Go to thisoldmarketing.com and let us know. And we need some reviews, by the way.
By the way, would be great to get some reviews.
Because the last review we got was very negative because they don't like football. Yeah, it was like I want to listen about football anymore. I'm like, well, you spent this time. Yeah, I think when we saw that review, we talked about football 3 times as much
together. Right. Just to have a laugh and share a song. I can sing more. Okay. We're going to open up with our top story here, which is TechTarget. Those of you in B2B marketing, well, you know TechTarget. And Informa has created a monster business. This, according to a media operator, by the way, it's just a fantastic newsletter. You should subscribe to it. And it basically, he says, and there's a number of obviously outlets that are covering this from CNBC to other financial, because it's a big deal, right? But basically it opens up by saying it's not every day that you see a deal that can have a major impact on B2B markets. And it's not every day that you see the combination of Informa Tech's digital assets, which I'm familiar with, obviously, because of the Content Marketing Institute relationship to Informa, and of course, TechTarget, into a new pure play digital B2B business. This is according to the press release, of course, that Informa will contribute basically its digital businesses and $350 million of cash in exchange for a 57% stake in the combined company, which gives you a little bit of a deal about how TechTarget was valued, where TechTarget would be valued at. In essence, basically, Informa, as it says, provided a large chunk of cash to pay shareholders of TechTarget, plus provided all of its digital businesses, including Industry Dive, which Informa, of course, acquired in the second half of 2022, Netline, an intent-driven lead generation platform, Omdia, a research business, and various other digital media brands. And so it's interesting. They're almost creating its own sort of siloed part of that business, that sort of syndication business there. And the article goes on to talk a little more about the details of the deal itself. So you've been part of these big publishing media company acquisitions before. What was your take when you read this? And then I've got a short take about this and maybe how it pertains a little close to home for us.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but if you remember when UBM, now in Informa, purchased what was Pentamedia, that was my former company that I worked at years ago. They split it off, and basically Informa kept the event side of that business and got rid of the magazine and the digital media business, and that became Endeavor. So they split that off, and this feels like a make good. It feels like if Informa had the opportunity to do it again, they would have kept those newsletter subscribers, those print subscribers, those loyal, those wonderful brands that some have been around for 100 plus years and are still going strong today. And Endeavor Media, from what I know, is continuing to do really, really well. Now, that said, so they get a little do-over here. But what's interesting is they really are keeping it siloed. So this is not getting intertwined with the event business that's Informa's big business at all. They are really saying, look, this is a B2B media and information division, and it's just going to be that, and almost putting it under this TechTarget brand, if you will. And that's interesting because, I mean, what have we seen for the past 20 years in B2B media? It's this integration, this thought of integration. It's like, okay, we've got the events business, we got the media business, we'll see what happens with print. We've got this custom branding business that we do, a lot of content marketing projects. We've got a research division. So that's like, oh, okay, that's the modern media company. But in this case, that's not what they're saying at all. They're
That's
saying
right.
we want to keep these things separate because we believe at scale focus is that important, and we don't want one to clutter up the other one's strategies. Am I reading that correctly? Because that's certainly what this looks like.
It's exactly how I'm reading it. I mean, this is so. To me, what this looks like is, and you said it very well, which is the if they had to do over again, which I think is I think they're in many ways it's a correction happening in very at the tectonic level, right? A correction for a strategy that was pre-pandemic all about the events business, right? It was all about events and events and events and events and in a very, very, very small way, what the acquisition of Content Marketing Institute showed to then UBM and then subsequently to when UBM was purchased by Informa, it showed that the media business is what the online and digital media business is what drives the event business, right? So they work synergistically. And so in a very small way, that was and I'm not suggesting that it was the CMI acquisition that sort of pivoted the entire Informa strategy, but at a smaller scale, it was that recognition of that they had over-indexed on events and needed to balance a much more B2B and media business, which includes everything from newsletters to content syndication to intention, networking and all those kinds of things, and build out their portfolio that way. And you can see that happening in real time. If you look, and in the article, actually, it actually lays out the 4 divisions of Informa, and you can see it. You can see it just there, right, where they're basically saying, look, we've got a division form on events. We've got our data and research sort of elements, and then we've got basically marketing stuff, and we've got our academics, where we have everything from online learning to all those kinds of things, and then we've got sort of this growth area where we're sort of making weird investments in terms of things that may or may not work out. So it's there. I think it's honestly brilliant management to me. I think when I look at it, I go, this is exactly what a company the size of Informa has to do in today's world of either becoming a giant media company or a small media company. We've talked at great length about how it's hard to be in the middle, and scale is what wins the day here in 2024. And this becomes just a core piece of their business. So, the interesting thing is, CMI will probably feel none of this, right? There will probably be the implications to CMI, content marketing world, and all those kinds of things, other than, oh yeah, they're part of the same company, is probably negligible in terms of how the impact on it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
The one thing I always thought in the past with a company, not just Informa, but like Informa or events-driven companies, it was a focus on the product. We are an events company. And what this makes me think is that there's more of a focus on the customer. It's like, why should we think we have such a wonderful relationship with this customer? We're only going to sell them events. That's it. Like, what business? You always say that. What business are we in? So it's a reanalyzation. Look, what business are we in? Are we in the B2B buyer's journey in this particular market? And we trying to help them be better marketers or data analysts or whatever the market is? Or are we just really good at running events?
That's right.
We've talked about on this show. It's like, okay, you build an audience and then you can monetize that audience up to 10 different ways. Well, if you're just events, you're basically looking at one or two ways. And that's where I always love the CMI model, is because we were like, we want to build a relationship with this audience person, and then we can sell them all sorts of things.
Right.
And we can do it all sorts of ways. and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I just think one is more natural, and maybe for the long term for a company like Informa, it now makes sense to say,
they're
my
balancing
God.
their their portfolio of revenue streams, right? So
That's right.
against a customer base, which even if you look at the front page of the Informa website, right? I mean, they basically say it right out loud in their brand statement, which is we're basically looking at specialist markets, right? We're looking at very discrete niche personas that is our customer and selling them many things, right? Which, data, education, event participation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about those markets.
And don't you think a little PTSD from COVID? It's like
totally.
Yeah. We still remember how revenues went to almost nothing from billions of dollars.
That's the indexing I think they recognized after COVID that they had way over indexed on the event business. And basically say, hey, listen, this is what I mean by that very small example, because during COVID, CMI actually did very well, right? Because of how much digital media business was already built into the model. From webinars to online events to the blog to sponsorships of media and research. Is basically that was built into the model and didn't go away, right? And like so many of the other brands had their sort of digital media chops ripped out from underneath them, and I think that was also the precursor when we saw Industry Dive Industry Dive was a perfect acquisition to sort of repair the damage done by ripping out all those media properties from the event companies.
Absolutely, they go together. It's like peanut butter.
They really do,
right? So
they really do. Okay, right. Well, hey, listen. Speaking of monetization and thinking about our customers, I don't know where I'm going with that.
Doesn't matter.
It's probably time for us to pay a couple of bills here, shall we? Your sales software should not be a bummer. When you step inside your CRM, you should feel equipped to do your best work. That's the magic of HubSpot Sales Hub. The new Sales Hub is designed to help you win. With an intuitive prospecting workspace and AI-powered tools to reduce your workload, closing big deals is no big deal at all. Get AI-powered tools like ChatSpot that are tailor-made to help you automate steps across the sales pipeline so teams can take back their time and spend it on more impactful tasks. Close more deals and get on track for your best Q1 yet. Learn about HubSpot Sales Hub at HubSpot.com/sales. Want a great new podcast for 2024? Well, try Truth, Lies, and Workplace Culture, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Truth, Lies, and Workplace Culture, well, it features husband and wife team Al and Leanne Elliott as they dispel myths, impart wisdom, and answer all your questions about finding, keeping, and motivating great people. Just like Joe and I, one of their recent episodes featured their predictions about what trends will dominate the 2024 workplace. You can follow Truth, Lies, and Workplace Culture wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
It's so calming.
Yeah, there you go.
That was going.
I'm going to ask.
I'm
going to ask again. Have you listened to Upstairs at Eric yet?
No.
Oh my God. I'm just going to have to force. I'm going to have to force you to listen to it on the show.
No. I have my to-do list right here. I'm writing down Upstairs with Eric.
Yeah.
So, and the problem here's the problem, because I wrote it down on this. See all my notes here. If you can see on the screen. Yeah. All those notes. It's in there somewhere. It says do that, but I didn't because I lost it. But now I made a new to-do list. I'm feeling really good about it. This to-do list is going to be accomplished today.
Nice. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud.
You should be. Yeah. And you, especially for January, because you just don't get much out of me. So
that's right. Yeah. To get anything out of you in January.
This is the fact that I'm here.
That's right.
Is a win.
That's right.
It's a win. I should be positive about that.
We feel it. We feel you.
By the way, I went to see American Fiction last night, the movie, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. Lovely.
Yeah. So I honestly, you will really like it. You will really like it. I highly recommend it.
Okay. All right.
That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, so let's get to our next story.
Let's do it.
Okay, we got and this is an interesting one that hits very close to home for us. This is going to come courtesy of Semaphore, which is also a great site, by the way.
It is.
The news here. Well, the headline. Let's start with the headline: the incredible shrinking podcast industry. And the news is that Apple has quietly tightened its reporting of how many people listen to podcasts, sending shockwaves through an embattled audio industry still reeling from the end of the COVID-era production bubble. The shift, Apple wrote in a blog post, was technical. The dominant podcasting platform had begun switching off automatic downloads for users who haven't listened to 5 episodes of a show within the last 2 weeks. But while few users noticed this shift, some of the biggest podcasts in the world saw their official listener numbers drop dramatically. Long-running shows that published frequently were hit particularly hard. A user who had listened to a show like the New York Times The Daily a few times, subscribed, but stopped listening, would continue to count as a download indefinitely. Even better under the old rules, for people who listened to a show, dropped off for a while, but started listening again later, Apple would then automatically download every show in between the last, listening. The arrangement drove big download numbers, a crucial metric for ad sales, and all of that. So, we have another story to pair this with just to get another angle on this, but basically they say the same thing, which is we've seen a dramatic decrease for most podcasts, especially those that are heavy Apple users. And the change here is basically if you don't listen to episodes, 5 weeks in a row, it stops downloading them, right? It stops automatically downloading them, which it didn't used to do. So it's probably a good thing ultimately for listeners, their space and all of that. But boy, does this hurt if you're a podcaster? I mean, what do you think?
Well, let's be honest with it. It probably started at the end of September.
That's right.
Into October, you and I were looking at our downloads saying, what are we doing? Like, have we made people upset? I really didn't know what the heck happened. And now we do. And it's happening to everyone. And if you just have to, the article goes into the fact that the top 10 podcasts by downloads have no comment. They don't even know how to answer because their entire media kits and the way they talk to advertisers and sponsors about this thing needs to change. And by the way, a lot of you that are listening to this have podcasts, but just so you know how it works, when we get contacted about somebody wanting to sponsor on this episode, the first question they ask is, how many downloads do you get per month?
Yep.
That's it. So, this affects that. Now, to your point, this is a good change.
That's right.
But again, it's very, very difficult. And I don't know if this is a question of, rented land again, but it's downloads are just one vanity metric. And this is the thing that's tough about being a marketer and a content creator, because of the fact that we don't really know with anything that we do.
Yeah.
Who's engaging. It's almost, when I was reading through this and looking at the data, Robert, I almost said, this is almost why I like leaning toward YouTube a little bit more when it comes to podcasting, because at least I get a view. If somebody has to watch it for 30 seconds to get a view credit.
That's right.
So, maybe they're only listening or watching for a minute or 2 minutes, but at least they did. In the past, with downloads on via, Apple Podcasts, there's nobody. You could have thousands and thousands of people downloading this thing, and they never open one of them.
Well, it answers a huge question that I've had for months and months and months about analytics, right? So you and I, as you mentioned, watch, obviously, because we're in the business and we care, and we also monetize this to a certain degree. Our downloads. And to your point, when advertisers come in, the first thing they want to know are the number of downloads per month, typically. And the interesting thing is, if you've noticed, by the way, that your other favorite podcasts will often stick in just random episodes, a la something like Professor Galloway's show or those kinds of things. There's a reason for that, by the way. There's a reason that there's a frequency bias in terms of the number of shows per week, because if you do one a week you get whatever your monthly download is, divide that by 4 or 5, depending on the month, of course. And that's the number of downloads you're typically doing per show. But that's not exactly true either, because what happens is that you divide that number by 4, and then what you get is sort of this weird long tail. Like the previous month, all of a sudden the numbers will go up. And now you know why, right? Because what was happening is that you come in and you're like, I haven't listened to the show for 2 or 3 weeks. You would hit download for watching or listening to the show rather. And now all of a sudden the previous 3 or 4 or 5 weeks would automatically download
the ones
too.
you didn't listen to.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you look backwards, you have to take that into account now as well. So the interesting thing is that it's not just a current month thing. Like this isn't going to be like a 1 month blip on most podcasters' downloads. This is going to trail for 3, 4, 5 months before things really normalize out. And so it's going to be a problem for some time is the point there. And a lot of people are filling their weeks with new shows precisely for this reason, because if they can get more shows in, that shows more, obviously you're more likely to automatically download something. And when you automatically download something, well, then of course, then there you go. So
yeah, you're right. You want to sell more sponsorship and advertising at an extra episode.
That's right.
Is your best way to because you don't need more people. You just need your current listeners to download. Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting, but also this hits a lot of creator business models. I mean, not that we've been a part of the HubSpot podcast network for very long, but I'm under the assumption that the other ones have similar agreements to ours, where you have to be at certain download numbers, or they expect certain download numbers. Well, right off the bat, the numbers that everyone was using on every platform. We use Libsyn as our host, but you see it on any of them. Apple's not gonna be shooting those download numbers to you anymore. So everyone's just boom. They fell off a cliff, and now there's a new plateau level.
Yeah.
And by the way, that could change again.
Oh, indeed.
Vanity metrics.
Indeed. Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see the sort of longer term effects of this. Because as you said, the networks that have set up, in aggregate will feel this even more, right? I mean, they're going to feel, when they've set up a network of shows, and it may be a network of even small shows. Well, they're going to feel this in a much more, in other words, the smaller your show, the more exponential this decrease is going to be. And because, you're going to, you lose X number of downloads for the small, let's call it hopefully a small number of people who don't listen every week or who don't download every week. And then if, taking that percentage, it's going to affect smaller shows way more than it's going to affect like the Joe Rogans or those kinds of things. Because if you're listening to Joe Rogan, you probably listen every week. 2, if you're not, it'll be a blip for him, right? It'll be some small percentage for him. But for small shows, this could be the crusher.
Yeah. And there's a lot of podcast listeners out there that listen depending on the guest. So
that's right.
Where it might take a hit if you're not.
Yeah, no kidding.
2 idiots talking like us every week about whatever's going on. I mean, it's a little bit different. We don't have guests.
That's right.
By the way, a lot of people don't know that, because about 3 times a day I get
emails. I get it too.
Saying that they would like to guest on.
Yeah, the CEO of X company wants to be on your show, because you have such great guests on your show, and it's like,
what for one,
okay,
what
I might listen to the show without telling me you don't listen to the show.
Well, for one, if I would consider it, maybe if somebody says, "Now I know you don't have guests, but if you did, like, I'd be like, oh, thank you. At least you know.
Exactly. At least you listened. At least you cared.
So
right.
Here's your next guest.
Yes.
So, but yeah, the whole, it's just an interest, especially as you and I, with our podcast, we're trying to figure out the YouTube algorithm, which seems to be leaning toward longer original videos. Are preferential to YouTube. And plus, we've already seen that, as we break up the podcast into shorts, our goal is to get people that watch a short which is anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds for what we're doing, and we can hopefully get subscribers to our YouTube channel that way.
I'm loving our TikTok. I'm loving our TikTok channel.
We have. I don't think people know that we're testing out a TikTok channel. We do
come watch us on TikTok.
Yeah, we've got that going. We just started that. We've got 6 or 7 videos on there.
It's good. It's really good. I mean, watch out, Kelsey Brothers, because we're coming. We're coming for you.
We're coming. It's
coming.
Not really.
As long as if it stays cold, then we're not coming for you. But if it warms up, if the temperature warms up, look out.
It's never going to happen. But I do. We're learning a lot through both YouTube. We haven't done Instagram yet, and we're sort of waiting to see how the TikTok thing does. But we'll probably do Instagram. And basically, it's the whole idea of we have one base, and that's the show that we send out on the podcast on audio, and then we have different ways to distribute that in video format. So it's we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, very quickly, let's cover this OpenAI story before we get to Rants and Raves, because I've got a small take on it, and I think it is an important thing to think about, which is this last week, OpenAI has now debuted a new Chat GPT subscription, surprising exactly no one after their enterprise sort of rollout, but it's aimed at smaller teams. So OpenAI says TechCrunch is launching a new subscription plan for Chat GPT. It's viral AI-powered chatbot aimed at smaller self-service-oriented teams, aptly called Chat GPT Team, much to Joe's dismay.
Oh, no.
I know. The plan provides a dedicated workspace for teams up to 149 people. I love the fact that it's so specific. 100, no, don't bring that 150th person in here. Just
wouldn't that be sad? I'm sorry, you're 150. You're out.
Yeah, you're out. You have.
But I'm recording
people?
But I'm going to record it while they out me on that one.
Exactly. Using ChatGPT as well as admin tools for team management. All users in a Chat GPT team gain access to OpenAI's latest models, which is Chat GPT-4, of course, generating text, GPT-4 with vision, which understands images, and of course, DALL-E, which creates those images, plus the tools to allow Chat GPT to analyze, edit, and extract information from uploaded files. That's probably the biggest change there, which is critical. I will tell you, to getting real value is being able to upload your own stuff. And of course, like the enterprise version and other tools as well, it lets you not opt out of having the documents that you and the knowledge that you upload get to be part of the general learning model. So you can sort of get your own sort of isolated thing there. Pretty cheap, $30 per user per month, or $25 per user per month billed annually, which is higher than ChatGPT Plus, but you get all those team-oriented benefits, and et cetera, et cetera. So do you have any? I have a quick take on this, but I would love your take if you have one.
No, go ahead. I want to hear your take.
So I think this is continuing down. I have long thought that the biggest impediment to all of these, I mean, you can't throw a rock these days and not hit a new generative AI startup that does exactly this, right? Whether they use their own learning model and LLM, a la a company like Writer, which is a fantastic company, by the way. I'm a big fan of what they're doing, to, Jasper, to, all of the ones that are out there, Notion and Copy.ai, and, all of these that are focused on small teams or big teams in some cases that use some element of either ChatGPT or their own learning model to sort of segment off of businesses and let them do these things across a multifunctional or multi-member team and upload enterprise things and keep that all separate and make it your own kind of thing. I've long thought that the biggest threat was going to be OpenAI getting into this business, basically becoming the Microsoft OS of the AI spectrum. And this is just another, this is them becoming, there's they have Salesforce over here kind of model, and then they now have the HubSpot kind of model, which is, we've got it for the enterprise where we can sell it big, enterprise level services. And of course, now we have the small business model, which can actually help that. So I think this is really a long-term big wave that may end up, sort of taking out a lot of these new startups. and we'll see how the startup community evolves to meet this challenge. They're going to have to start, building features fast and furious, and selling fast and furious. And that's the interesting thing that we're noticing with all of our clients is businesses still aren't acquiring tools yet. They're still just playing around. So there's this really interesting tension right now with a speed to market, like being able to offer up all these features and all these things that you can do as a small generative AI company. The fact that the market is pretty soft right now for companies that are committing to big enterprise deals, and then sort of the invention or innovation that's happening at big companies like an OpenAI, where they're going to be offering these small business tools to sort of disrupt the marketplace. And I think it's going to shake out here in the first half of 24. And I think we're going to see a lot of these smaller companies sort of get swamped by these big waves.
Yeah, I mean they're so smart at moving at the speed that they're moving, and now that they had the new board, if you will, at OpenAI,
Yeah.
that's probably a little more forgiving on the aggressiveness of Sam Altman.
Yeah.
OpenAI has nothing in front of them to stop them from just dominating this, and so they're going to become, if you looked at if you look at the stock market, they call it like the significant seven or companies, or Fab. It used to be Fab Five, and and you added Netflix and Nvidia and whatever. OpenAI joins that list of Google and Microsoft and whatnot.
Yep. Yeah.
As this thing gets crazy, and I think that valuations aren't going to get any higher. You're not going to see anything like that, but you're going to see, I think by the end of the year, some pretty scary stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think
once we get through the election and stuff with just AI in general, but everybody's looking at this now that we see it every day, and we're like, okay, well, how can I use this in my business?
Well, there's an interesting sentiment. Yeah, there's an interesting sentiment going on right now, I find, which is there seems to be a bit of a bifurcation happening, right? And what I mean by that is that I'm seeing a lot less, and a lot of this is quite honestly due to the sort of meh quality of imagery and text and original content that's generated by AI. I mean, I'm just seeing a lot of people that are unimpressed with and a lot of the writers that were initially like super freaked out about OpenAI or Chat GPT and the ability for generative AI to generate original content are kind of going, okay, it's okay. We're going to be fine, right? Writers are going to be fine. Image designers, we're going to be fine, right? There's just a lot of weakness right now in that. And that may be on purpose a little bit to sort of, because what I'm seeing is sort of the fear, because that sort of general overarching sort of, oh my God, AI is going to become Skynet and, take over the world and do all that. I don't see that as much anymore. I don't see a lot of fire being lit underneath these companies right now in terms of those things. There's still a lot of concern about IP and copyright and those kinds of things that'll sort itself out. But I don't see a lot of the fear anymore. Where I see the fear moving, that energy of the fear moving, is in the deep fakes, is in the sort of that sort of element, which of course businesses really aren't leveraging that much yet. But the sort of fear I see is exactly what you're saying, right? Bad actors doing things with AI, like making politicians say things, or creating imagery from the war, or that all of those kinds of, that misinformation seems to be where the big fear is right now.
Yeah, what is, everyone will have their own truth, and AI is not adding to this in a positive way.
Which itself lends itself to more human-oriented content, right? Differentiating by the fact that you're creating human-oriented content. So,
it's funny. Did you listen to the Decoder podcast that they threw on Galloway's stream about?
I did not.
Basically, it was like, it talked about the downfall of Twitter, and it said, is it Trump's fault? Is it Elon's fault? And basically, when you listen to it, you get to the point where it was management's, it's Twitter's fault. It was started with Dorsey. They just couldn't make a decision about anything. But the whole thing is tied to, everyone has their own little truth. And that's the problem. There's nowhere to go for who's, and of course, we've talked about this forever, but I think that's what we're in for. AI being central to this. Oh my God, where you're going to have your own truth. I'm going to have my own. Everybody's got their own truth.
Yep.
And it's going to get really nuts as to what should
It's
I
going to get
believe
nuts in here.
24. What should I?
Shout out, by the way, when
for?
I did my Batman quote, it's going to get nuts in here. There was a lot of people on LinkedIn who knew that right away. That's
because we have,
and shout out to our audience is so smart. They're so smart. They're so smart. They get it. They get me.
We have the smartest audience. Yeah.
You like me. You really like me. Okay.
The smartest ones.
All right. We're going to move on to quickly our rants and raves because I've got quite the rant to go on. So Joe's going to go first. This is, of course, our rants and raves where we go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave that makes us feel like, well, let's just say that makes us feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or makes us feel like the Cowboys or the Browns. How about that?
Jeez.
Ouch. I had to go there again. Yeah.
All right. Let me go
Kudos,
first.
by the way, to the Packers and the Buccaneers for playing an amazing game. Matt LaFleur and
I like both those teams.
And Todd Bowles.
Both the teams and the coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. Todd Bowles, Matt LaFleur, fantastic coaches, fantastic effort. Just beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Just really well done.
Beautiful.
All right. You go.
Right, I have some commentary here. So this is from Creator Economy Law, fantastic site here, talking about Reddit winning their lawsuit over the subreddit WallStreetBets. I don't know if you knew about this.
I didn't know about this.
But WallStreetBets, founder of the subreddit, Jamie Rogozinski, I think is how you pronounce it, wanted to retain basically put a trademark on WallStreetBets, and Reddit was fighting him on that. There are appeals going back and forth. But long story short, I'll put the article in the show notes so you can check it out. But long story short, Reddit owns everything. And the big reason why Reddit owns everything, this is important for all content creators out there, is because there was no usage of WallStreetBets before the subreddit was created. So if you have any community that you're creating, anything at all, you have to make sure you have some kind of usage on it that outside of rented land, outside of a LinkedIn or a Reddit or a Facebook or Instagram or whatever, so that you have some claim to ownership. And that's where, if you go to the bottom of this article, they have a really good section on creator takeaways. And it says, big takeaway for creators when creating your communities, be mindful of the platform terms. And that's where they say is that Jamie would have possibly won this case if there was something previous before the WallStreetBets subreddit. So, man, 1 million plus people on that. And this individual, this content creator started the whole thing, but that was all given to Reddit. Now, I know Reddit made it happen with the platform, but boy, that's why you got to be careful if you start these communities on other people's sites. So they sided with the big platform, folks. Big surprise. There you go.
Yes. That's really crazy? Interesting. Yeah, it's really just crazy and interesting. I mean, that's a big win for Reddit, right? I mean, in terms of their valuation and what they're doing as a media company.
So look at some of the stuff we talked about in our books and case studies where you have a Facebook group, a lot of huge Facebook groups that started that have a unique name. Well, you know what? This is precedent for you don't own any of that.
It's right.
All Meta's now.
That's all.
Or wherever platform you're at.
Which is basically what you sign up for. Like when you when you click that box saying and you sign up for that terms and conditions, you're basically saying anything I create here, they're allowed to use. And what this is saying, basically, anything I create here is them. They're theirs, right? Not necessarily the content you write in the platform, but the platform itself is theirs.
Basically it says right here, consider establishing and registering to protect a brand outside of the community-based platform like Reddit Plus before starting up the community site.
Yep.
So get your ducks in a row. And I know it's tough, right? Because a lot of people, you don't know.
You don't think about it, right?
Something out.
Yeah.
But hey, get the domain, put up a site.
Yep. Come on. Yep. Go owned media, my friend. Owned media.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
I want to hear your take on solo brands.
So yeah, very quickly here. Well, not very quickly. This is not going to be that quick, but I promise you it's worth it because it's a fascinating story. So, okay, the news story that we'll link to here comes from The Daily, which is a retail site that talks a lot about retail brands and their strategies and what's going on. And maybe you remember in mid-November of last year, Snoop Dogg made news because of a campaign that he did. Now, basically, he launched this whole thing November 15th, by the way, with a single tweet. And the single tweet basically said, after much consideration and conversation with my family, I've decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time, which was classic. Just perfect Snoop, right? And so it went viral. Mainstream news covered it. The social media covered it. It was on TikTok. I mean, it was everywhere. And then they all linked to a video that they released, a sort of a press release kind of thing, which was on YouTube, which was basically Snoop sitting in front of a fire and basically saying, listen, I'm tired of my clothes smelling. I'm tired of feeling my, smoke in my lungs. I'm tired of this. And as the camera pans back, what you see is, of course, Snoop sitting in front of a Solo Brands smokeless stove. So he's giving up smoke. Get it? Smokeless stove. There's the campaign. And it was amazing. And it's a brand awareness campaign. It was amazing. It got 30 million shares, I think. Yeah, 30 million likes, comments, and shares on social media. The YouTube video is sitting currently at just a little bit over 1 million views. Ad Age ranked it 18th on their top ads of 2023. And that was, by the way, in November. So just that day is going to become important here in just a second. So what could possibly have gone wrong, right? Well, Solo Brands says, it didn't work. And they threw the whole marketing campaign and the CEO under the bus for it. Now, they announced sort of last week, basically saying they're replacing their current CEO with a new CEO. And normally that wouldn't be that big of news for a brand like Solo. But the interesting thing is that I don't know, for some reason, they felt the reason that they needed to explain why they were replacing this CEO was because basically, and this is a quote from the CFO, who basically in the earnings release, the press release where they announced the replacement of the CEO, said, look, our unique marketing campaigns raised brand awareness of Solo Stove to an expanded and new audience of consumers, but it did not lead to the lift in sales that we had planned, which, combined with the marketing investments, because hiring Snoop ain't cheap, negatively impacted our EBITDA. And so they gave lower revenue guidance in the coming quarter because of that. And of course, that was the reason for throwing the CEO under the bus. And so the interesting thing is that they're saying this. Think about this for a second. They're saying, the company is saying with a straight face, that this brand awareness campaign started in November of 2023 failed because it didn't provide a revenue lift. Count them 6 weeks later, right?
Not even, right?
Not even 6 weeks later. They're failing the Snoop Dogg campaign because it didn't provide sales lift 6 weeks later. Now, normally you'd say, well, maybe it didn't provide any sales lift at all. They're not seeing anything. So that's the thing that you would think. And I'd say, no, as a marketer, this is a great example of why aligning goals and objectives with our bosses, our board, our teams is so important. It was a brand awareness campaign. It wasn't designed to actually provide sales lift. And the reason I know that is because as a marketer, I went and looked at every single way that they've sort of distributed this. I went and looked at the TikTok videos. I went and looked at the YouTube video. I went and looked at the Instagram videos. I went and looked at all of the things, the call to action in non-existent. No call to action in any of the videos, which tells me it's a brand awareness video because there's nowhere to go. One call to action in the YouTube video, which clicks to, wait for it, the e-commerce page for Solo Brand stoves. Basically, it says learn more in the comments of the YouTube video, and you can go buy a stove, which is stupid, of course, because if you're interested in and were just made aware of the brand, you have no persuasion to go buy a stove. You're just like, oh, that's cute. And now I'm aware of this wonderful stove.
Yeah.
The fail here isn't that they didn't get sales lift in 6 weeks, which is ridiculous at its face. The fail here is that they didn't actually connect it to something that might lift sales. In other words, there's no content there. Why not link that video to a video of, join Snoop's smokeless community, join Snoop's, new health plan, join Snoop's new way to think about smokeless in your own life, an ongoing email newsletter or a publication or a website or anything, by the way, anything at all to connect it. Because the interesting thing there, and this is what gets to this sort of weirdness of this whole thing, a month after it launches, right? So it launches in November, December, they have another article, same magazine, by the way. The retail, it was the then CEO was interviewed, and they actually explicitly said this brand awareness campaign isn't about revenue, right? You definitely don't tie. This is a quote from that CEO. You don't tie this to revenue. There's no reason to tie this to revenue. It's all about looking at this as a brand awareness campaign. So here's a brand that brought in a fancy agency. They came up with a brilliant idea to do this thing with Snoop that went viral, and you could probably have predicted it would go viral with Snoop saying something like that, because the only other person in the world that's as closely associated with smoking weed to him is Willie Nelson. And so it's either going to be Willie or Snoop. And that would have made huge headlines if they had connected it to something, and might have led to uplift in sales if they had connected it to something relevant and experiential and everything. It's a huge marketing lesson for us to think about, because I don't know whether it's worth, and I'm sure there's something else there that was replacing that CEO. I mean, I guarantee you it wasn't just the Snoop Dogg thing. But thinking about that as a marketing fail is not in the sense that you didn't do well with the content or that the content wasn't good. It was a fail because you failed to actually look at what was supposed to be next. When you win the war, what's next? How do you actually keep that attention? And so that's my rant there, is that it's a great marketing lesson for us, as a case study, a cautionary tale of how to do this better.
Oh, I love that overview. Thank you for that. It's interesting. I got focused on the time. You're totally right about the goals and aligning.
Yeah.
Also time. These things take time. And it makes me think of, I was at this volleyball tournament over the weekend, and you know what? All the teenage women were carrying around those Stanley cups.
Yeah. The pink things. Yeah. That's a fascinating case study
they were
too.
Everywhere. I thought it was new.
No.
You know that thing's been around since 2015.
That's right.
And initially the largest audience for that were
construction
female
workers.
Mormons.
Yeah.
Because of these dirty soda drinks that whatever. I only read a couple articles on it. I don't know. But the point is they started very small. They held back manufacturing on it, so that it was sort of hard to get. Yep. And then went from there. So 9 years, and now it's everywhere.
That's right.
And they weren't even talking about 9 weeks for this program.
Yeah.
You're talking about.
Yeah.
Jeez.
People are collecting them now. So they had that company had a plan. They put it together. They actually had help with a set of influencers to help them get the word out. They connected it to experiences. It's
really amazing.
It's two different case studies there. Yeah.
I talked to my friend's daughter, had one beautiful pink Stanley cup. And I said, can I ask, how much did you pay for that? And she said, 60. I said, 16? She said, 60. I said, did it come with a $50 bill?
Exactly. Yeah.
60. Yeah. $60. They're going between $46 and $70 for these things.
Dude,
depending
there
on
are people on eBay selling those things for like thousands of dollars.
I am officially old. I just, is it autographed by somebody? Is it limited edition? Like, what is going on here? I don't get it.
That is it. All right. What do you got? What do you got coming up this week?
Next week I might take a quick trip to Florida to get some warmth, but I'll be back in time for our important podcast. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned, don't you have a webinar coming up for the content advisory? You want to mention that?
Nice. You're so nice.
I think it's important. I'm very proud that you're putting on this webinar. I think you should tell people about it.
Oh, thank you very much. That's so sweet of you. Yes, we have a webinar next week, actually. And we'll put a link in the show notes if you would like to register for it. We've gotten an amazing, honestly, way more than I had thought would register for this thing. So I'm super proud of it and
give us the details. What's
basically it's on, we're calling it sort of, there's a title, which is basically using generative AI to get, ready for your content strategy, but
nice.
more appropriately, it's how to get ready for it. Basically getting ready to get ready for AI. Is sort of the informal title of it. And it's what you have, it's all the work to do to get pragmatically ready to put in generative AI into your content marketing or your content strategy. And we've got a whole sort of framework that we walk through that can help roadmap out the right steps that brands and teams should take in order to get ready for integrating AI productively into their strategy. And so thank you for mentioning it. Yeah. So we'll put a link in the show notes for that.
Put that in the show notes. Make sure you register.
Next week, next Thursday. Yeah. Yep, next Thursday.
Excellent.
And we're looking forward to it.
That's very important, and you need to talk about that. That's very relevant to our audience. You need to be promoting that kind of stuff.
I know. Thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder. That is wonderful. All right, let's get the hell out of here, shall we, and go wallow in our football misery a little more. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Give us a review if you would. And yes, we will see you next week. And next week we can talk a little bit about how the webinar went, because that is on the docket. And so thank you for listening. And until we see you next week, just remember, it is your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.